want to kill the lights?
Clive.
Yo, any question already? We haven't even started.
Hollywood Donut Factory donated.
Hollywood Donut Factory donated the donuts. They have holes in them. Okay, I did this presentation. This is my second time, but I think it was last year, so I forgot most of it, but maybe I'll be refreshed when I see the slide. And it was all because of Claire Garrett in the house right now from Park East Civic Association said, I want you to do a presentation of Park East. And I'm like, when she wasn't listening, I'm like, what the hell am I going to talk about Park East? I don't know what's going on out there. And thank God she did, because if you don't start researching these different areas, you don't know what a rich treasure trove of history is in Park East. Thank you for asking me. We have a couple of guests from New Jersey, Steve and Lori Wilkins, all the way from New Jersey. They flew down here to see this. So I expected more people from Hollywood, but we got New Jersey in the house. All right, I got to get started. So Hollywood Inc., you've got the two men that are responsible for most of Hollywood. And interestingly enough, the second guy, Sam Horovitz, has more of a reign than Joseph Young, who was really from 1922 to probably 1929. That was it, because after the hurricane and the stock market depression, he's completely out. And this other guy, Sam Horovitz, becomes the second father of Hollywood, and nobody really knows him or gives him enough credit for taking over the reins of all of Hollywood after Joseph Young lost everything. And there's a bigger picture of him. He was a tenacious businessman that started a paving company in Ohio called the Ohio Paving Company. So novel. And he was actually paving in Cuba in Miami Beach, and Joseph Young goes to Indianapolis where he meets Carl Fisher, who's developing Miami Beach. He's like, I'm going to go to Hollywood, what's called Hollywood, but see what's going on down there. And he ends up using the Ohio Paving Company to pave the streets for Hollywood before a lot of buildings were built. Roads go all the way out to the third circle, which was known as Hollywood Hills Circle, because there was an inn there. So, you know, after everything happened with the stock market crash and the hurricane, Joseph Young couldn't fulfill the contract of this guy, so he foreclosed on Joseph Young's holdings and got everything. So all of a sudden, this guy owns every vacant lot in Hollywood, with the exception of some individual lots that were already sold, but he's really the grand poobah of Hollywood, and a lot of people didn't like it because Joseph Young lost everything. But they said if the tables were turned, Joseph Young would have done the exact same thing. It was business, and he didn't get much. He got a land that a lot of mortgages were on and behind tax liens, so he had to sit on the land, didn't know what to do with it, so he gets in bed with the New York Mercantile Trust Company, who held the mortgages on the land. Smart guy, he's got the deeds, the New York Mercantile Trust has the mortgages, and they form Hollywood Inc. And that's how it happened, way back then. So it's been around a long time. So this is what I just uncovered recently when I did the lakes. Hollywood by the Sea is the city that's being built for the people instead of waiting for the people to build the city. Isn't that wonderful that they thought about that for us? Nobody thinks of that. They just haphazardly start building. And that was Joseph Young's dream, is to build a city beautiful, thought out, well laid out, and taking into account all the different income levels that you're going to have living in your city, not just for rich people. So this is the original blueprint for Park East, which runs, this is Park Road, and this is where 95 is. It's a seaboard rail system. And you can see this beautiful layout, which is the City Beautiful. If you don't know what a City Beautiful is, you hear it all the time, but what is it? It's not just a beautiful city. It's a city that's thought out in a way that even if you're poor or you don't make a lot of money, you're exposed to grandeur, monumental beautification, wide sidewalks, boulevards, and just all around like art and vegetation. Instead of living in the slums or the ghetto, if you're poor and you're exposed to that growing up, it'll affect the way you think about the world. If you're poor and you're growing up in a beautiful environment, it could change your moral outlook and improve humanity. And there was a controversy between that concept and real social reform, and it all came about by rich people that were concerned about poor people's living conditions. Imagine that. I mean, just stop and think about that. So Joseph Young takes the concept, builds wide boulevards, wide sidewalks, North and South Lake, where anybody could walk around the lake. The Broadwalk, that did not fulfill to fruition, but the Broadwalk is part of that City Beautiful. He didn't want, if you were poor, you had a right to go to the beach and promenade and not see the back of somebody's mansion. So that's what the City Beautiful is, and that's what we are. Now, what I did not know about Park East is that this was going to rival the Lakes District in in its income level and its beauty, because it was going to be called the Central Golf Section. And it was going to be two 36-hole golf courses that were going to run from where present-day Orangebrook is all the way north to West Park Road. Think about how big that is. This was going to be a huge country club, and that's why you may not know when you drive down Johnson Street, you see West Golf Drive. Golf Drive, you're like, why is it Golf Drive? The golf course is all the way on Hollywood Boulevard. It's because the golf course was going to go all the way up there, and that Golf Drive was going to ring the golf course. So they kept the original layout and just stuck to the Orangebrook area for the country club. And this is what it was going to look like. He was planning a gondola Venice-style community because this area was a swamp, just like the lakes. Most people don't realize that Park East was a marsh. There was a small ridge between Park East and where the lakes began, where it was high and dry ground. So Joseph Young had to drain this area just like the lakes. And so when he thought about doing that, he said he's going to have lagoons, he's going to have canals, he's going to have gondolas, and he's going to have these Can you imagine? That's what kind of neighborhood this was going to be. I mean, it blew me away when we found out this, and it was because somebody asked, what about us, the history of our neighborhood? So I'm hoping everybody's going to do that. I can share these slides with you if you want. These are just some of the advertisements. You can see how fancy this area was going to be. This was the proposed golf course clubhouse. It's bigger than our clubhouse in the lakes. This thing was massive. And so that's just the same slide. So this is what we ended up with. So here's the present day Orangebrook golf course. And of course, that's the third circle. And you can see, I don't have my pointer with me, but this waterway is all Joseph Young's waterway. So in order to drain all this, he digs the C10 canal himself with his own money and takes it all the way to Dania Cutoff Canal to drain the swamp so he could build this area. Interesting to note, in the 40s when we got two back-to-back hurricanes and this area was underwater for weeks, Tony Mickelson, I forget who they talked to, the Army Corps of Engineers, and said, can we please open an inlet at Dania Beach where the pier is because the water's not draining. So they got out there with equipment. I found this out in oral histories and newspapers. They dug an inlet right through Dania Beach to get to the ocean, right where the Dania Cutoff Canal comes in the intercoastal, and they said the minute they did that, the water started draining immediately in West Hollywood. Because think about it, it had to go to the intercoastal, then go north and go to Port Everglades. It was a long time, so I found that little tidbit interesting. So this is the very beginning of the C10 Canal. This is Johnson Street and the C10 Canal. It's where Clean Paws is, where that little shopping center is. This is the earliest photo that we have of the C10 Canal. And what's interesting to note, see all the white spots? Sugar sand. It's dry, dry, dry sugar sand. This is dark, moist, wet soil. And then look at what happens when you get to the third circle, where Memorial Hospital is right about here. The ridge goes up again. So this is what happened in South Florida before canals. It wasn't all dry. You had these series of dry lands surrounded by these swampy areas, and I'll get into that in a minute. So this is a today picture of that same canal that's still serving its purpose. Joseph Young built things to last. The canal is still doing what it's supposed to do, drain this area for us. We don't know how much longer that's going to go because the sea level's rising. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I love this slide because you really get an overview of the then and now. So this is Johnson Street coming out here. This is Taft Street, about where Orangebrook Elementary is, and there's a huge lake here. And this is T.Y. Park, going all the way to Taft Street. All this around here is water. T.Y. Park was an island, and it was surrounded by transglade. And a transglade, before they dug the canals, the fresh water in the Everglades was so, what is so funny, Mr. Lander?
It was trans before trans was...
It was trans, don't say that word. It's a tranny glade. And so, now I'm all off kilter, thank you, Tom. So anyways, this whole area had so much fresh water pushing from the Everglades, there was nowhere for it to escape, so it would just meander around and find the low spots, and they became marshes. because there was so much fresh water in the Everglades, the Intracoastal and Lake Mabel were practically fresh. They said there was freshwater plants growing in Lake Mabel where Port Everglades is, because the inlet wasn't enough to pull back the fresh water rushing from the Everglades. It was just a Mother Nature doing her thing. And on the beach in Hollywood at Sheridan Street, I wish I had my pointer. This right here is a lake, and it was a freshwater lake, and it was called Duck Lake. And Joseph Young was going to build his house at Duck Lake because it was a freshwater lake and there were ducks in there. So that's got washed away in the 1926 storm. I should go back. I don't know how I go back on this thing. Is that how oh, great. Okay, so perfect. So most people don't know that West Lake was dredged. They think it's a natural lake. No, Joseph Young dredged that, and there it is, right there. And then all the mangroves are gone. Every mangrove in West Lake was leveled, and they sat on that property for so long that the mangroves actually came back. By the time they were ready to develop, they're like, you can't kill these mangroves. Well, they already killed them. They just came back, thank God. And we ended up saving the whole entire park. And there's a better view, and you can see Duck Lake, and we're going, there's the Dania Cutoff Canal, and you can see how strange the Intracoastal is up there where the Dania Cutoff Canal is, and down there where Hollywood Beach is, and they're just dredging North and South Lake, you can see there. So, one of the oldest houses in Park East is built in the 20s, and it's in the old Okemo Trailer Park, which is Bowman Park now. That house was owned by Ben Butler, and it was on 25th in Cleveland, and it was built in the 20s, and it was a wooden house. Ben Butler fancied cow farming. So he picked up his house and moved it to the Okemo Trailer Park, which was not an Okemo Trailer Park at the time, starts a rock pit quarry at T.Y. Park, and clads the house in oolitic limestone, not coral rock, it's oolitic limestone. And that house stood for many, many years, and then he decided to open a trailer park and call it Okemo because he ran into that word in his travel, and it means welcoming in some other language. I can't find that information, but I'm going to take his word for it and say that's what it means. So anyways, that house stood for years at the Okemo Trailer Park. Meanwhile, he buys 300 acres on the old Oak Island of T.Y. Park and has a cow dairy there and supplies milk to Miami and all the regional hotels that are in the area. A lot of reports of his cows getting loose and wandering into backyards. One mother's calves went across the seaboard rail line and they started freaking out. A train was coming, and we know what happened then because, you know, cow scoops do their job. Yes, sir.
Why does it say oldest house in Parkside there?
That's a very good question. That is not, they meant, I don't know why, but that's not, this is actually a historic designation report that was done by Bonnie Dearborn for the city of Hollywood to declare this house historic for the city so they could grant money. Yes?
I think the house was moved from Parkside.
Well, it was moved from 25th in Cleveland, which is not Parkside. And it says that in this report. So that's just nobody caught that. Thank you, Andy, for bringing that to our attention. I will be blocking that out. Pretend you didn't see it. And this is the house. The city of Hollywood spent a lot of money to restore this house somewhat, but then they kind of, I don't want to say dropped the ball, but it got so bad that they needed to tear this house down because it was not maintained, even though they purchased the house, even though they had it declared historic, even though they got grant money, the roof started leaking, it just got to the point where they basically had to demolish the house. And they kept the chimney. So if you want to visit the chimney, go into this park, and you will still see the chimney and parts of the block wall. So what he did is he basically clad the wood structure in this coral rock, and it was a wonderful piece of architecture.
The house was donated to Hollywood by the developer, along with the.
Thank you. See, I got people that know more than me here in this. That's not my wheelhouse, but thank you for saying that. And here it is. I think this was probably taken in the 40s, and you can see a lot of the oak hammock is still present. And there's the site right there. And you can see the canal going all the way out. I don't know what that is. So this tells about the Oak Island. It's a remnant of an Oak Island, a mosaic part of island chain, basically. And then, so what happened is, it went all the way to Snake Creek. So these transglades around T.Y. Park continued south to Snake Creek, which is in Hallandale, North Miami. They called it Snake Creek because it kind of was like a snake, and the Indians would use that to use it for transport. So I think I have also another picture of that. So you can see it's a transverse glade. There's the edge of the island. It's T.Y. Park now, means the gathering place. It was the largest park in Broward County, I think, when it opened. And here's a better shot of it when it's brand new. And I talked about Guyson because he was really instrumental in having this park formed, and I don't know what happened to the one slide, but the pool that they made in T.Y. Park for the kids' swimming beach, it was a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And the water was crystal clear blue. You know why? It was spring fed. That water in there was spring fed, and he said the lake would get so full, they had to dig a culvert under Sheridan Street to drain into the C10 canal because the water kept coming out of the spring. I don't think it's very spring-like now. Yes, Penny?
When was T.Y. Park opened?
You would ask me that question.
Of course
I think
I
it's 1972.
It was 72.
So like 71. They started talking about it in 1965. It goes back that far because Ben Butler sold the dairy. They took the cows up to Ocala and continued the operation. And his daughter was alive, I think, until just recently in the house that they built in Ocala. So that's kind of interesting. Anyways, yes, you got a question?
Went out the door.
So, okay, so this is just more of an over. Here's the Snake Creek on the bottom. You see how it kind of winds its way around? This is what we have today. Basically paved concrete wall for the water, nowhere to go. And this is what it looked like before we did that. So all this water is just coming down and just shooting along the southeast direction. So great was the water pressure that there were freshwater wells in Biscayne Bay. There was freshwater springs offshore. So if you were sailing and you knew where those was, you could just take a cup of water and drink it. That's how strong, because our oolitic limestone's like a sponge. So the water just pushed down on that sponge and it traveled east and it just bubbled up. The Barnacle, if you've ever been to the Barnacle in Miami, they have a well on the bay and that's where they got their fresh water. It's just a rock well and they put the bucket down there and the fresh, they talked about artesian wells in Miami all over the place, the Venetian swimming pool. But all that's gone now because there's so many straws sucking the water out of the ground and they diverted it that underwater water geology is not present today. This is what this whole area looked like at T.Y. Park. These are, at the time of the survey, they said these oak trees are about 200 years old. Wow. Now this Oak Island goes all the way into Emerald Hills. You wonder why you drive down 46th Avenue and see these massive oak trees. Wonder why you drive to 56th Avenue and there's the developer didn't plant those. They built around the oak trees. And so they've been there all this time and we're lucky in Hollywood to have this incredible oak canopy still present and we need to maybe talk about saving them or protecting them somehow. Yes?
How did Mr. Butler get possession of the T.Y. Park? Didn't it belong to the Indians?
No,
Native
the
Americans?
Indians did not own one bit of land here. We pushed them out to where they live now and said, this is where you're staying. They had no title to the land. They were hunter-gatherers, right? So they just lived off the land and moved around. And we came along and they were like, you know, by the time it got to be like the 30s or 40s, thank God for Ivy Stranahan, because the white men were down here and they're like, these Indians are becoming annoying because we want to build and they're all over the place. So she put the chief in her car with implements, went to where they live now, and said, dig in the soil, this is really good land, it's dry, and you won't have to run and hide anymore. She convinced the tribe to settle on that reservation, and the government gave them that, and it's a sovereign nation. It used to be called the Dania Reservation because it was adjacent to Dania, and then during annexation, Hollywood took over all the land around, and it's now considered part of Hollywood, even though it's a separate nation. They don't subscribe to, that's why they have a gigantic guitar, not the code, that shines lights in people's backyards all night long.
Oh, that's why I thought it originally belonged to the Native Americans because they T.Y. Park.
Yes, it's a Seminole word for gathering place. And they say because of the transverse glades that they probably camped there. They did an archaeological survey, didn't find a lot, but they said there's definite Indian probability that they camped there, moving around like they did. So this is part of that swamp I was talking about. If you drive behind T.Y. Park, this is where the swamp was really bad. And you can see the ground is sinking really terribly on this street. And it's because it was built on like a riverbed, basically. And so they drained the land, but I don't think they brought a lot of fill in. And it's actually sinking. You can see where the front door is and how low that dip is. That wasn't intentional. Yes?
So that whole area, it's because they didn't, back then they wanted to develop quick.
Right.
When they did that in 1955, and they didn't remove the muck.
Right.
So the muck then deteriorated.
You know where else they didn't do that? The lakes.
Yeah.
The ground is sinking in the lakes, and the ocean is rising. I don't want to scare you, but we're in trouble. Okay, Hollywood Beach Hotel, I just threw that in there because I can. I don't know why I did that, because we're in Park East. I know why I did it. I'm just thinking and talking at the same time. Which is not good most of the time, but when I'm talking about history, it's okay. I did that because, now it's coming back to me, Celine Dion. Because Hollywood Hills Inn was the sister hotel to the Hollywood Beach Hotel. If you think about the position of the Hollywood Beach Hotel and the position of the Hollywood Hills Inn, they're facing each other. They're bookending this beautiful grand boulevard. And the Hollywood Hills Inn was a much smaller than this, but it still has that same Hollywood Beach Hotel look. And you can see all the native slash pines are still present when this thing was built in 1925, 26. This was so far away from downtown that it was sold as an equestrian experience where you could go horseback riding and hunting, practice archery, look out for the rattlesnakes. But this thing, and it only operated one season and then everything collapsed and it sat empty for so long. The Riverside Military Academy was looking for a home, and they actually ended up in the Hollywood Hills Elementary School, and then they eyed this property, and we were lucky to secure the Riverside Military Academy in the 30s because nobody had any money. This town was broke. We allowed open gambling in downtown, even though it was illegal, and we called it a tax when somebody would get arrested. There was a fictitious name. That person wouldn't get showed up, and there would be a failure to show up fine, and the business would pay for that so they could keep their slot machine and the city make money. This is real stuff that comes out of the history books. I am not making it up. And kudos to Hollywood for figuring out a way to make money during the Depression. That's what I say. It's not so bad. Nobody got hurt. I mean, anyway, so this thing sat out there for many, many years. I remember the building well. If you grew up in Hollywood, you remember the River Rats. They were called the River Rats when they came this one, because they were all cute young guys with tight uniforms, and they couldn't leave campus without wearing this outfit, which made all the other native local boys pretty pissed, because, oh, the River Rats are in town, the River Rats. So, and they would do their formations on Sundays in front of the hotel. So if you didn't have anything to do, you just drove out there and watched them do their formations. It was really an event. It was a fun thing to do, and then they decided they didn't want to come down here anymore because it's probably so warm in the winter in Georgia. They don't need to come down here anymore. This is the Hollywood Hills Elementary, under construction. Again, this thing is built in the 20s. There's nobody out there for miles and miles and miles, and he builds this school for no kids. There's no kids here. But anyways, look at these tall Dade County pines. You see how tall these things are? These were erased from the landscape in Hollywood. Joseph Young cut every single slash pine down in downtown. I challenge you to find one. If there is one, somebody planted it recently, because all the native ones are gone. And I told my city we need to get these things in the ground because they're native. We did it at the chamber with Kat Uden. We had a native vegetation project. And you can go look at some slash pines growing where they used to do, and you can see how well they're thriving with no water for 2 years. Mostly, except Cat gets over there sometimes, but mostly they're relying on Mother Nature, which is what they did years ago. People are like, oh, you have to have irrigation system. Like, well, who was watering them before Joe Young got here? Who put the sprinklers on? I mean, they grew like crazy. I don't understand. Look at how many there are. It's crazy. And this is the circle. This is the circle in Hollywood Hills. Look, do you see anything? Isn't it great? Love it. Why can't it be like that now? Okay, so another thing that happened in Park East. Why you guys got a train station, I don't know. There was one 1.5 miles down the road, and there was nobody out here, but Joseph Young courted the owner of the Seaboard Railroad, had a private meeting with him and convinced him to build a railroad station, literally down the street from our other railroad station on Dixie Highway. And it opened, I think the first train got there in 1927, and it was called the Seaboard Airline Railway, not because it was connected to an airport or an airline system, but because it was a straight line down the East Coast without any curves or mountains. So they said, as the crow flies, you can get to Hollywood. So they called it the airline, which was kind of interesting, a little play on word. This is the architect of that Seaboard Airline Station. Unfortunately, we lost the one on Dixie Highway, but we still have this one. And this guy's a little bit of a rock star architect. His buildings have been celebrated and preserved in Palm Beach. The other stations that are still present are Deerfield, Delray, and Hollywood. I believe those are the only railroad stations that are left that he constructed. And if you've not been to the railroad station, you should just go into the parking lot and look at the outside of the building. It's all original, including the lobby. You can see the big frieze, the big medallion above the door, the wood spindles. There's more wood spindles over there. There's vents underneath the roof. I mean, and this is the lobby. Look at how high the ceiling is, probably because it was hot. And the higher the ceiling, the more cool you're going to have. They got the transom windows above the doors. Nice molding there. Original terrazzo floors. It's all from 1927. And this symbol, I have asked people, and I don't know what it means. It's some sort of Masonic symbol, and I have not been able to decipher that, but that looks like electrical bolts. There's railroad tracks, and it looks like an ice block thing, and I don't know what the bell is.
Hold on.
Clive, that's the Amtrak station?
Yes, the Amtrak station. So, a little dark history, but since we're talking about history, we're telling all the history and we're not omitting anything. This funny looking overhang with the blocked up doorway was the colored entrance. So back in the day, it was very segregated in South Florida and you could not use the front door, you had to use the back door. And so I love how they left the awning there so we know where it was and you can clearly see the outline to be reminded of, just how it wasn't always the good old days for some people in the South, but there it is. This is the rest of the building, and this was the kind of thing that you would get on. The Orange Blossom Special would come all the way from New York. And we did an interview of a woman that used to go to the Hollywood Beach Hotel, and she said in the 40s they would take the Orange Blossom Special, and they'd get off the train and there was this beautiful sign that says, "Welcome to Hollywood by the Sea." And she thought it was like Wonderland. This is magical. I mean, she said it was so romantic sounding. You get off a train like that and you see that sign. And there it is in action. I think they have this in the lobby of this thing. So dedication of Orange Brook, that actually happened in the 30s. Anybody want to know why it's called Orange Brook?
Yes, oranges probably.
And?
Next to the river.
Next to the brook. So it was always a low-level line. Some parts of Orange Brook were high enough to plant trees, and there was a brook there. So and that's exactly why it's called Orange Brook. We confirmed it. Here it is, the sunshine, blah, blah, blah. So the name is no misnomer. The brook may not be of the babbling kind, and neither does it sing or bubble, which poetic brooks are said to do, but it is fresh water and no bog or no swamp. So hail to Orange Brook. So that was 1936, December 2nd, 2 days before my birthday. Don't forget to write and send me a card. So these are pictures from the opening of Orange Brook. You can see everybody. It's like everybody was Fred Mertz back then. They wore their pants super high. That was the style. Maybe that's going to come back. I don't know. See how high his pants are? Like what? And this guy, look how skinny his legs are. It's funny. Anyways, we'll just go. Oh, so your other very old building that is no longer with us, unfortunately, used to be, and my notes are going here. Yeah, so this structure was built in 1927. It was at 1582 Harrison Street, and it belonged to the First Church of Christ Scientists. I don't even know what they are. They're Jesus scientists, maybe. I'm not sure. But it got moved here and donated to the Garden Club. It was very active. Petered out, most of the members died, they didn't have new members, and then it got turned over to the Railroad Museum, and they didn't really do a lot with it, and so it just sat there to the point that it got deteriorated. It was listed as a historic building, but it got so bad that eventually it was torn down, so we lost that one. Nobody knew what to do with the thing, and it's a cute little building, but this is what happens. No, this was Hollywood Boulevard and 95 on the west side, on the south side of Hollywood Boulevard.
Right in front of the JC's building.
Right in front of the JC building. So the 50s. I put the orange there because, like I said, Sam Horvitz couldn't do a thing. It was the Depression. It was all he could do to keep the taxes paid on all these vacant lots and keep up with the mortgages that the people walked away from. So about the 50s, Sam's still alive and he's ready to put shovels in the ground. And the first area is where Claire lives, near Orange Brook Country Club, Calais Grande or whatever the word. Cali Largo. These were the first homes that were ever built in west of 95 on a large scale by Hollywood Inc. And they're some of the nicest, most interesting architecture by mid-century architects. So they're celebrating Orange Brooks, and I think this is fun. We should do this when it reopens. They took oranges and they spelled Orange Brook out on the golf course. So when we finish redoing this country club and they open it up, I'm gonna put that suggestion out there. She's clapping her hands, so you know it's gonna happen now. Claire's clapping her hands. That's definitely gonna happen now. So there we are, I just said it. Some of the first homes were 3137 Harrison, $16,000 to build that house. Another one at 115 South Cali Grande. Is that your house, Claire? 115 South Cali Grande.
No, that's not.
Yes, Tom?
My home was built in Park Road Manor, and my house was actually the, what do they call a house that everybody goes to?
Model.
I was the model home.
I don't doubt it. You belong in a model home,
And
Tom.
because-
You're a model citizen.
Especially when I wear a dress. So, but my house, when I bought it, didn't have a sidewalk, because that's where people pulled in. And so the three houses on both sides, all three were model homes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got some newspaper articles that show some of these. This was interesting. You're in Park Road Manor. This is it. Just one home site left. Maybe you know where this is. Park Road Manor with 160-foot frontage on Arthur Terrace. This irregular curved lot is ideal for patio or pool. This was in the 50s. I don't know where this is, but I wonder, I mean, it's good. Who has a 160-foot wide lot in
I know
Park?
where it is.
You do?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you can give them that
We
article.
have two houses with that.
So Look Homes was a big developer in Park Manor. They did the homes off Arthur Street, very east, close to Westlake Village. And they also did the homes on the waterway in 28th Avenue. Look Homes was a big, they didn't build big homes, they built the smaller homes. I can send you any of these slides, if you like. You'll get a much better quality, and you won't block people's view that you're doing. Yes, ma'am. I welcome questions, but don't make it a long one.
I found what those signs are, and it's very interesting, so you might wanna read that, and.
Really?
Yeah, read it to the people, because it's very interesting. You won't.
It's they're railroad hobo signs, a form of visual code used during the 19th and 20th century by hobos, workers and travelers. They would carve or draw these signs on fences and post houses and train cars. Useful. Here's a breakdown. The top left is zigzag, interpreted as safe camp. Well, I don't have it up there.
Yeah.
The crescent-like symbol could mean food nearby. And a bell shape is often used to alert or warning. The greater best usually means jail nearby. That's interesting. How funny, it's a hobo signal. Why would they put that for the hobos? We don't want hobos at the railroad station.
No, I don't think they mean hobos as we name them today. I don't think hobos.
Yeah, that's exactly what they mean, hobos.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no other word for hobo but hobo. You can't. Hobo is a hobo. Say it enough, it sounds funny. Hobo. Travelers, okay. Third Look Home developed, we're just gonna go through. So, that's the very beginning of Park East, and then it kind of spread out from there. Obviously, as it went west and north, the homes got newer and newer. They started in the 50s, and they finally finish up around the mid-70s. And they had so many homes for sale, they did a parade of homes, and they had interior designers come and decorate all these homes, and you could walk into each home and look at the layout and pick which one you wanted. And these are all the different styles and models, and I think this is getting into like the mid-60s, possibly late 60s. They were all medallion homes. I see that sometimes on older homes, you see that medallion. This is like one of the Park Manor style homes. It's kind of smaller, it's got the carport. So they made big homes and then made like, average size working style homes. Hospital, that's the other big thing. It's just on the other side of Park East, but I include it because you have to. We didn't have a hospital in South Broward except for doctors, which was really small. Nobody knows who Holland Park is. Nobody knows who Sid Holland was, but he was instrumental in creating the South Broward Hospital District and getting us a hospital. He was known as Mr. Hollywood. And he also patented a wringer washer machine, which we have at the Hollywood Historical Society, and it says SS Holland on it. Anyways, that was his claim to fame. And they boasted about their stork club. So if you were an expectant father, you went to the stork club, and they had long hallways where the men could pace up and down. This was what they were advertising. And plenty of ash cans for the smoking fathers that are waiting for the baby. And yes?
Could you go back to, because you skipped it, Chambers, he built my home, if that's what it said, Chambers.
Yes.
Yes.
Another big developer. Yeah, Chambers was another big developer in the Hollywood Hills.
The house I live in now.
Oh,
In Emerald Hills.
he built it the last. Yes, ma'am?
Was Hollywood Memorial the name, was that the first name of the hospital?
Yes, it was always Hollywood Memorial,
Yeah, and when did they get that started?
1954, I believe,
And
or
then-
53. I got a gentleman here that was born there. Where is he? What year were you born?
54.
He was probably the second baby. His father was pacing up and down, smoking like a chimney.
It's about the one in the hospital who started the memorial.
Holland was a resident of Hollywood that knew that we needed a hospital, and they had to form the South Broward Hospital District. I feel like now the South Broward Hospital District is doing so well that Broward Health is jealous, and they're trying to take us over. They didn't want any part of us, but since we have such a good hospital system, well, we need to merge and be better. Leave us alone, we're fine. You know? People don't like to come south of the Daniel Canal unless they want something from us. Anyways, 2,500 people. And the other thing is, see how the nurses got her elbow? So the other thing they advertised in the paper is like you could turn the faucet on with your elbow when your hands were full. This was a very novel thing. And the door handles had those door things that went up and you could just grab it without touching it in case your hands were sterile. They also talked about how they wouldn't let women wear wool or nylon because it created static electricity, and the floor was like anti-static black linoleum because there was so much ether in the hospital they didn't want it to explode. That's comforting, right? But they said it's so humid in Florida the chances are low. Maybe not in the winter, the humidity could drop, you know? Don't get sick in the winter, the place might blow up. So they're talking about the Stork Club and all that. It was fun to read. And this is the original. This is an ad for the aluminum jalousie and screen company. They're proud to put the aluminum jalousies. And you know what that means? When you shut them, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. They're not glass. And they're like, you can be really safe because if there's a hurricane, you just shut these little tiny thin aluminum jalousies and you'll be fine. What? They're like like paper thin. Of course, there's no air conditioning either, so if you had a fever, you're probably pretty hot in there. And that's what it looked like. Can you imagine? The Hollywood Memorial Hospital that you see today. And that building is encased in the building that you see today. They just built up and they built all around. So in the bowels of the building, and this is Johnson and Park, it faces south and a little east. And you can see what's behind it. Nothing. It's amazing. And this is what it looks like, not today, because that's what it looked like in probably 65 when they put those in addition. But you can see the original on the floor here. So it's still the same building. Let's talk about the Hollywood Mall. Yeah, hey, people like the Hollywood Mall. First air-conditioned mall in South Florida. First one. There was one in Orlando. We had the second one. Coral Ridge likes to say they had one, but they didn't. Don't listen to that lie. We had the first one. This was built by Hollywood Incorporated. Population was moving west. They were building all of Hollywood Hills and Park East. And guess what happened to the population in East Hollywood? Everybody moved down here. Guess what happened to downtown? It started to die because everybody started to go to the Hollywood Mall. You had everything. So it was a problem. Then the Hollywood Fashion Center opened. Then the Pembroke Lakes Mall opened. All this just kept sucking the population out of the core of downtown Hollywood. It's really, and then now everything is coming back. So, of course, we had the Morrison's Cafeteria. Who doesn't like, there it is, air-conditioned mall, first air-conditioned mall. This was the largest retail Sears store in South Florida when it opened. It was huge for its time. I mean, this Hollywood Mall was kind of a big deal. And I love how they have the H. This is the emblem of Hollywood Inc., Hollywood Mall. It's kind of like a mid-century font there. And that's how they build it. Hollywood Hills with a city within a city. Well, you know, that's true. They had everything. They had the mall, they had a theater, they had a bank. It was that whole Joseph Young planning for everything back in the day. They did the same thing in Hollywood Hills. But like I said, it did kind of affect the downtown Hollywood area. Then they decided to, build a theater. The Florida Theater had burned down on Hollywood Boulevard in the 60s. It was a really cool Art Deco theater. And so they opened this theater. It was called the Florida Twin when I was a kid. And when I was a kid and a juvenile delinquent, we would go there, and this is them breaking ground, and we would see the Rocky Horror Picture Show every Friday and Saturday night, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I was there, and, it was, LGBTQ councils and none of that was out. And if you were really questioning who you are and you saw this movie, you were completely freaked out. You're like, what the hell is this over here? My God. Way ahead of its time. It was a flop at the box office. This movie was a flop and it became a cult classic. And I think it's the longest running, highest grossing flop that ever, with Tim Curry was just interviewed. And I watched the interview. It was hysterical. Gina, Lola, Brigida, and Gig Young went to the opening of this theater. They had a premiere. This is like the real Hollywood, California, having a premiere at Sid Grudman's Chinese Theater right here on Park Road and Hollywood Boulevard. Who knew?
What was the Torch Club?
I don't know what the Torch Club was.
Yeah, look at that burlesque.
Oh, look at that. I don't know. I'll have to find out what that is. Okay, so you had your bank. This is kind of like a mid-century international style bank building. It is still there. I don't think it looks like that. This is them building it. This Heiko Industries, if you want to know how far back that goes, the 50s. That place was there in the 50s. It wasn't Heiko, but it was an electrical manufacturing plant. So Park East even had manufacturing. You guys you had a concrete manufacturing plant that Rinker owned, which is now the Yellow-Green Market. If you want to know what that weird, gigantic steel building was, it was a concrete plant.
So the Rinker was located there because of Seaboard, but also because of the lakes in that area. That's where they got the
Limestone.
limestone
Right.
and the concrete.
So they were in the paper many times for polluting the C-10 canal. The runoff would go into the C-10.
They still pollute.
They still pollute. Well, there you go. See, there you go. Solid pollution. So that's that. Let's talk about a sad part of Park East history. We, unfortunately, were world famous for this poor kid that disappeared at the Hollywood Mall. And, if you do research on this whole thing, it is so strange. The story, the kid went in there was an Atari game, this is before the handheld phone, and the kids were all gathered around the Atari game, and the mother had to return a lamp, and there was a bunch of kids there, so she left her son there, Adam, and said, stay here, wait for me, I'll return the lamp, and I'll come back and get you. A fight broke out between the kids. So the security guard said, all you kids get out of here. Not knowing that he didn't know any of those kids, and he was a shy boy. So he goes outside, the kids leave. So he's standing there by himself, and that's how he got grabbed. Now, Otis Toole confessed. Otis Toole had a history of confessing to murders he did not commit. Why? I don't know. The Hollywood Police Department had
Was he the security guard on Radio Shack? Was he the security guard?
No.
No.
So there was evidence. There was a car, there was blood-stained carpet, and there was a knife. I'm not saying anything bad about the Hollywood Police Department, but the Hollywood Police Department lost the knife, they lost the carpet, and eventually the car. Now, I don't know how you lose a car, but they lost the car. I'm not making it up. You can read this for yourself. So, It's in the canal, maybe. So, Jeffrey Dahmer was working in Miami when Adam Walsh disappeared. There is an eyewitness that described Jeffrey Dahmer. There's also an eyewitness that saw his blue van that was a delivery van in the parking lot. They interviewed Jeffrey Dahmer, and he said, I did not kill that kid. I did not kill that kid. Everybody knows I don't kill kids. I only kill adults and eat them, not kids. Well, the reason he said that is because if you kill a kid and you go to prison, you're going to get killed. That's what happens in prison. And now he's dead. So we're never going to know who really killed Adam, but the police department considers the case closed, and they said Otis Toole did it. I don't know who did it. It's a tragedy, and it seems like that if I was related to him, I would question who did do it. Yeah.
And John Walsh, of course, the files on that case are still sealed.
Right.
And nobody, it seems like, why would this guy that did America's Most Wanted go on to one crime that he was totally sealed?
It's a very good question, Tom, and I just find it very odd that you lose all that evidence. Yes, do you have a question?
Yes, when you're done, you can put the sign again with the...
Okay.
Because in your text, you have the information, hobos were not over, and that's...
Okay. She's quite the fact checker, this Connie. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, I don't know how this ended up here. This is the swim area in T.Y. Park. You see how clean that water is? There's no pump, there's no filter, there's no chlorine. It stayed like that for years, and the kids swam in it every day, but eventually it did get fouled from too many people swimming in it, and they had to dig it out and put a real pool there. But for years it was like this. What am I doing? Where am I going here? Okay, the YMCA. YMCA opens. This is an interesting story too. A lot of people were behind this. Bill Horowitz, Sam's son, takes over because Sam dies right after Orangeburg starts to develop. Bill takes over. He was quite the citizen. He was very generous. He was involved in politics and involved in good causes. So it was him, Bob Guyson, Tinsley Ellis, and others that realized they needed to get something for the community, and they're the ones that started the Y. I think it was back in the 60s, and what was the amount? They had to get a loan from Hollywood Bank. It was a $600,000 loan at 7% interest. Back then they couldn't pay it. They got the money, they opened the Y, and they couldn't pay it, and they defaulted. And Bob had to go in and talk to the president of the bank, and I forget who that was. Maybe it was Tommy Wall. It was somebody. And he said, look, we can't pay. And you're charging a 7% interest, and that's a lot. And he said, if you don't work with us, it's not going to look good for the bank if you take the Y from all those children. Smart man, because they renegotiated the loan down to 3%, and they dropped I think they took like $200,000 or $300,000 off the loan amount. So they were able to save the Y and keep it going. So you got to thank these pioneers that came before us. Let's talk about the JC building. That was another Bob Guyson. If you don't know who Bob Guyson is, you should. He's an incredible citizen who did a lot. He was a JC, and he went to the bank once again to get money to build a building. And he talked to the president. He goes, "Oh, sure, no problem." He goes, "I'll get all the paperwork up and bring your wife next in when we sign the papers." Bob's like, "Okay." And he's like, "Gee, that's nice. The guy wants to meet my wife. Isn't he a nice guy?" So he brings the wife in. They sign all the papers, and he leaves. And they're in the car, and he's reading it, and he's like, "Holy crap." He goes, "I just took a mortgage on my house to buy this thing. That's why he wanted you here. So you could sign because you're on the deed of the mortgage." So he put his house on the hook accidentally to build this JC building. Luckily, they did finish the building, and they did pay the loan. But that was a little funny tidbit that Bob Guyson told us. And this is about the Junior Chamber of Commerce. When you're 40 years old, you're out the door. They don't want old people. It's only 18 to 40. That's why it's called the Junior Chamber of Commerce. You got a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, like, did you grow up in Hollywood?
Yes, I'm Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, baby. I'm by city.
No, I asked Michael, but, you know, I didn't want to talk to him. But it seems as though you grew up here, because...
Oh, I did. I mean, if you live in Fort Lauderdale, you went to Hollywood Beach and you jumped on the trampolines and hurt yourself. That's what you did.
Extensive knowledge of Hollywood, it's incredible.
Thank you.
You're great.
Thank you. You can clap when I'm done. So this is a brochure from Hollywood Inc. that my good friend Estelle Lowenstein gave me. And you can't really see, but there's an H with an I. So the top of the H is curved. I love the graphic design that they did here. So that was the Hollywood Inc. logo back in the day. And this is Bill Horowitz, and this whole brochure is advertising Emerald Hills, which was the last piece of Hollywood Inc.'s puzzle. They did all of Hollywood Hills, they did all of the Industrial Park, first industrial area in Hollywood, and the last piece was Emerald Hills, and these are some of the buildings they're showing in they built the golf course first in the late 60s, I think it was 69, and then they started building all the houses, and then they're talking about the future, and they got a picture of Westlake Park. Yes, ma'am?
Do you know why there are no alleys, why no alleys were built in?
Yes, because it wasn't laid out by Young, and it was laid out by the Horowitzes. And that was not part of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood ended at Sheridan Street. They acquired all that land later. So this is Westlake on the top, okay? This building and this monstrosity is what they wanted to put on North Beach. North Beach was going to be Hallandale North.
What is that?
This is what they wanted to do because they owned it all, and the city of Hollywood went to court with Hollywood Inc. over who just owned the beach because they claimed they owned the beach. And Hollywood is like, no, Joseph Young is clear, did not want anybody building and having rights to the sand.
Right.
So luckily what happened was there was no streets in North Beach. It was all open. So it made it easy to assemble large parcels, even though it was platted as smaller streets. But since there was no streets there, the city didn't have to abandon the right-of-way for the Hollywood Inc. You know what Hollywood did? They hurried up and paved streets. And Hollywood Inc. sued them for paving the streets because they knew that would screw up their plans. But that's how concerned the previous commission of the 70s was about overdevelopment on the barrier island. So I just want to point that out because we're going to hear from David Keating at the end of this. Mayor David Keating, in his own words. And it's almost over. You don't have to look at your watch again. So I saw what you did. Anyway, so this building is still there. It's on 46 on Hollywood Boulevard. You know that building. There's a picture of the Hollywood Mall, and they're just basically Steak and Ale. Remember Steak and Ale on Sheridan Street? Long gone. Here's a picture of the mall, circa 70s. Post-haste plaza. And that's it. Park East, it turns out, is a very historic community right under our noses, and we didn't know it. Don't clap yet. Don't clap. So, I told you Bob Guyson owns a building on Hollywood Boulevard and Dixie Highway, and they put a time capsule in the building when they built it from 1974, and we unearthed it, and when they opened it, and I went there to see the contents, we all almost passed out from the smell of celluloid. Because there's two 16-millimeter reels of film that I believe the Chamber made in the 30s or the 40s as a promotion to Hollywood. But I took them to the Wilsonian Museum and they said, these are really good hockey pucks. And that's about all you can use them for. Because the celluloid has melded together and you can't get them apart. But what was in there was a letter from Mayor Keating from 1974 to the residents of Hollywood to be opened during the time capsule, which was late. It was supposed to open in 2000, and we didn't open it until a couple of years ago. And it goes like this. It is with a feeling of humility and awareness of the mortality of man that I write to you, the citizens of Hollywood, in the year 2000 AD. That's when it was supposed to be opened. Although I may not be with you in body on this day, you can be sure that I am with you in spirit, and hoping that you love this beautiful spot on God's earth as I have loved it. During the administration of which it has been my privilege to serve as mayor, as well as previous one, which I was vice mayor, Hollywood was a leader in its concern for the environment. Facing the problems of sudden growth, we enacted strong density and environmental ordinances in an event to preserve the quality of life for present and future residents. As you look downtown Hollywood Boulevard and see the row of shade trees which were planted this year, we hope that you will feel that we did try to provide for you a city of which you can be proud. There are many things that perhaps you may say we should have done and weren't, but I assure you we did the very best that the economics of the times would permit. This is a historical year of a president's resignation and a president and vice president, neither of whom were elected by the people. The year of unprecedented inflation, high interest rates, and a dangerously low stock market. Your times may make our problems seem small by comparison, but optimistically, I am hoping that the problems will be solved and you will live in prosperity and peace. To all of you, I wish you well. Sincerely, David Keating, Mayor of the City of Hollywood.
What was that, 1974?
1974. I want him back. I'm gonna get his DNA and we're gonna do a clone. Yes.
Sorry, I must have missed something. Where is the Park East Historic Community?
It's the whole thing from Park Road to 95. All the treasure troves that I just explained is the history.
Got it.
Okay.
Also, you mentioned, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Okomo, I remember that part.
Who? Okemo.
Okomo, where was it exactly? I remember.
It's half just west of 95 on the north side. Crossing that convenience store. Just go north, it's right
So
there.
now there's a park there.
Well, they made it a park. They got rid of the trailers. Some of those trailers were vintage, cool 1955 Spartan Royal Manor trailers, which were amazing. But they've been there for the years. Yes, Tom?
Just to go with her question. So the community of Park East wasn't called Park East. It was called Orangebrook Manor, Orangebrook Estates, Park Manor, Lakeside, and I forget North of Hollywood. But when we will be 30 years old next year, where we went the community went door to door to create a neighborhood association for one reason at the time was to have to speak out for our community, because all our alleyways, unlike Hollywood Hills, were all dirt alleyways. And we wanted paved alleyways, and we wanted sidewalks. So that was the beginning of Parkey Civic Association.
That's interesting, the paving contractor didn't pave your alleys and he took over all the land. Isn't that
Yeah,
funny?
yeah.
Ironic. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Now you can apply.